Story 1. I have never wanted children. I do not think I could provide a decent upbringing for a well-adjusted child. People tell me it is selfish. I think it is more selfish to knowingly raise a child in chaos. Story 2. I like the quiet and enjoy being married to my best friend. I can go anywhere and everywhere whenever I want. Children are expensive, loud, messy, and inconvenient. Considering the current economic conditions in North America, I am living and enjoying what I can with comfort instead of stressing about how I will continue to feed and clothe a child. Story 3. The world is terrible. People cannot afford to live, buy groceries, or get medical care. I feel I would have already failed as a parent if I brought a child into this situation. Story 4. I hate being woken up. I can barely afford to feed and house myself, and I like getting high. Plus, I'm breaking generational trauma by simply not continuing generations. Story 5. I have some severe mental health issues that make raising children a very bad idea for me. I think there are people with mental health problems who would be good parents, but I am not one of them. I can barely take care of myself. Story 6. Never wanted them. They are expensive, annoying, and incredibly time and energy consuming. Absolutely not for me. Story 7. Pregnancy sounds difficult. I dislike babies and crying. Children can be challenging, and I could not handle it all the time. I am 41 years old, by the way. Story 8. I do not want to devote my life to the needs and wants of someone else at the entire sacrifice of my own. Children would significantly hinder my life, not enrich it. Story 9. They are expensive and exhausting. I love children, but I really love being able to control when and how I interact with them. Story 10. I grew up as the youngest of 3. I watched the other 2 get into a lot of trouble and saw the problems that caused for them and our parents. We were not raised well. I did not have any faith in my ability to avoid repeating that. I also saw the 2 siblings have children and start the same negative patterns that we were raised with. I realized I had a choice to have children or not. I chose not to. It has been a great life without children. Story 11. I babysat a lot, and all the parents seemed miserable and did nothing but complain about their children. I could not see any upside. Many would say, on the other hand, that it was all worth it. But if you ask them, they cannot explain why it is worth it or what exactly makes it worthwhile. All I could see was loss of time, energy, money, sense of self, autonomy, and peace of mind. Story 12. I was 6 years old when my little brother was born. I became the parentified child at 6. I basically raised a child throughout my whole childhood. I am done. I am doing what I want, something I could not do during my own childhood. Plus, this world is difficult and I did not ask to be put here, so why would I make someone else go through that? Story 13. Because I actually want to enjoy my life and not waste all my time, money, and energy caring for a screaming child. Story 14. Climate change, war, the economy, poor genetics, a desire to retain my identity and freedom, being adverse to noise, and concern for the children who are already here without parents, food, water, clothing, or love. If I am being totally honest, I see having children as being pretty selfish. Story 15. Just go into any public space and that is your answer. The screaming, crying, stubbornness, and grumpiness. No thanks. Also, children are expensive, annoying, demanding, and I would be forever worried that I am failing. I am selfish and extremely noise sensitive, and I like my routine, so it would be difficult for both sides anyway. Plus, my cats are enough. Story 16. I grew up watching how every single child around me behaved, including myself, and decided that when I became an adult, I did not want to deal with or be responsible for any part of that. If I ever need a reminder, I look at how Generation Alpha is doing. Story 17. It's a lifetime commitment that I cannot back out of, and if I make a mistake, someone's entire life is affected. Almost all of my money and energy will go towards someone else's happiness for at least the next 20 years, likely more. There will also be a year or 2 where sleep and I are not really allowed to associate, while I also have to clean up after someone else. Why do people want to have children? Story 18. I always believed that children should be fully and wholeheartedly wanted, and I never felt that. So I chose to do the best thing for them and for myself and did not have any. Story 19 just doesn't interest me. I want to go where I want, when I want, and I barely earn enough to keep myself alive, let alone support another human. I also find children really stressful and overwhelming and am not sure that would translate into being a very good mother. Story 20. I have many reasons. From the beginning, pregnancy and birth sound terrible. No thanks. The toddler age is exhausting. Based on my observations as an aunt or honorary aunt, mothers always do nearly all the work and fathers do not. I have heard there are exceptions, but I do not see them. In fact, I have no interest in a live-in romantic partnership because I enjoy my solitude and quiet so much. I do not want to disappoint anyone, nor do I want to be disappointed. I also do not think I could, long-term, sacrifice the things I need to sacrifice to give my hypothetical child the things they need to grow up to be good adults. I think I am too selfish. I am much better able to give my all for a few hours for my nieces and nephews, both genetic and honorary, and avoid having to set rules and guidelines and just have some fun with them. Because there is a deadline before they have to go back to their parents. I can set up mousetrap for my nephew 15 times. Sit stuffed between two car seats in the back, or follow my niece into the coldest water playground that has ever existed and have the breath stolen from my chest and nearly die. For them, because it is not forever. I was meant to be an aunt, not a mother. Story 21. It's not that I don't want to. I did for a very long time, but I am 38. If I got pregnant now, I would panic because I am not in a place in my life where there would be room for a child, let alone being a decent parent since I have mental health issues. I did not see myself able to plan for it within a reasonable time frame. It would have been a disaster. I would rather not have children after 40. Many people choose that and they are free to do so. I am not judging others. I had my tubes tied 2 weeks ago. Story 22. Observation. Most mothers look downtrodden, expected to do all the work, while fathers are praised for doing even the simplest tasks. Story 23. I do not have to decide not to have children. It is incredibly easy to not do something. I have to decide to have children. That takes effort and desire I do not have. There is currently no reason for me to do so. Story 24. If I could be a father, I would have been a parent yesterday. Motherhood reminds me of slavery a bit too much, so I would rather not. Story 25. I am just not the biggest fan of them. That is it. That is a good enough reason to never have them for me. Story 26. I don't like children. I have never felt the urge to have them. Society pressures people into having children regardless of whether they want them or not. I refuse to succumb. There is also the idea that you will feel differently when the children are yours. Really? Is that a guarantee or an assumption? It was not a risk I was prepared to take. It would be unfair to me and especially to a child who would have to live with a parent who could not give their all. Story 27. I had one and then decided I did not want to start all over again with another one. Also, the level of helicopter parenting that is expected these days is unacceptable to me. I do not want to end up losing my children or going to jail because I let them wander around by themselves in public. Story 28. Children end your freedom, especially as a woman. I have never wanted any and am very happy with my decision. Story 29. I am not a patient person. I feel like I would lose my cool with them. I would also resent them for the time they consume. I am just not fit to be a parent. Story 30. If having a child were affordable, I might consider it. However, when it is a struggle for two people without children, why subject a child to uncertainty about having food tomorrow? Story 31. The only thing that made me want to have a child is naming them. That is not a good enough reason. I have mental health issues, will not be able to provide for them emotionally or financially, and the world is a difficult place. I have never wanted to be a parent. Story 32. Because the village has been lost, the social structure for raising children is at risk or does not exist. Story 33. To me, having children in this day and age is an incredibly selfish decision. Whenever I meet someone who has children, I feel sorry for the child. Why? because most people do not stop to consider the world they are bringing the child into, and the challenges the child will face in their later years. Having a child right now means there is a significant chance the child will die in a war, as an immigrant, or from a natural disaster. Who would want to bring children into a world that we have damaged, one that is slowly coming to an end? Story 34. I chose to regret not having children rather than regret having them. There was a time when a child would have been great, but I have emotional baggage. Story 35. I have never wanted children. I have never been maternal toward humans. When I was a child, my parents made it very clear that if I became pregnant young, my life would be over. I also think the world is a difficult place and I have mental health issues. I would never want to see my child go through what I have experienced. Story 36. I just don't know what it's like to want to have children. I really don't understand women who absolutely need to have a child. Why? I just don't get it. How does it feel to have this urge? After my divorce, I had a tubal ligation and never regretted that decision. Now that I'm older and look back at my life, it's a good thing I never brought children into my life. They would have first had to deal with a divorce and later with losing their stepfather. Having autism might have made everything even more challenging for both me and them. Story 37. The desire to be a mother was never part of my personality. Even as a child, I had no interest in baby dolls or babies. I did not want to play house. I am 55 now, in menopause, and have been married for 31 years to a man who did not want children either. We love our life as it is and are glad we held firm when people thought we should have children. Story 38. At various points, for various reasons with considerable overlap, I am too young to have children. I do not feel financially secure enough and believe I never will. I lack confidence that I would be a good parent. We cannot afford to be stay-at-home parents, nor can we afford childcare. Our apartment or house is not large enough for more people. The United States appears to be an increasingly difficult place to raise children, and the future does not look promising. I am too old to have children. This was ultimately settled by having a spouse who also does not want to raise children and definitely does not want to experience pregnancy. Story 39. I love my independence. I enjoy working on my own projects. I can comfortably be poor while being capable of saving money. I have a better chance of staying healthy. I can be freely intimate with my boyfriend anytime we want. I can be spontaneous, and my house can remain quiet and clean. Story 40. Heavily parentified, so I think I have done my part in child rearing. I am also simply not a huge fan of children and do not have strong maternal instincts. Story 41. I'm 34 and don't feel like an adult mentally. I have no house and still live with my parents. It's almost impossible to save money, so there is no stability for a child. I was abused as a child, which causes a lot of fear and anxiety about becoming like my dad and not wanting to pass on trauma to another person. There is some selfishness in not wanting to spend my money on a child. I also have a genetic condition called neurofibromatosis that I do not want to pass on to my children. While my case is mild, I have no idea how severe it could be for my child. Story 42. I never wanted children. It is a good thing because I inherited some health problems that would be passed on. I also ended up struggling, so there is no way I should have raised a child. Story 43. It has taken me a long time to reach a mental state where I feel in control and like my life is my own. I am still working on it. Am I supposed to immediately give that up and sacrifice every part of myself for a child? I believe that would cause disaster for both of us. Story 44. The expectation of society on the mother is unreasonable. Just the other day, my dad said that once a woman has a child, she will have to take on many extra responsibilities. Many of the challenges mothers face, starting from pregnancy, are not well acknowledged or discussed. Society presents having a child with unrealistic optimism. Story 45. Nothing did. The innate, instinctual desire to have children is not actually as universal as people like to think. Story 46. Never really had a strong desire to have children. I am of the opinion that having children should be an optional choice. Also, I have various sensitivities, and having to always handle a sticky child sounds like hell. Story 47. Watching my mother sacrifice to keep us afloat and send us to schools in good areas made me realize I would rather live my life for myself and not be tied down to a child. Also, I sincerely do not believe a child I have today will grow to old age in the world we have left. Story 48. I do not want to be a parent. I do not want to raise children. I had a difficult childhood, and my father's traits should not be passed to the next generation. Story 49. I am a mother and want to say that you are all valid. I do not regret it, but it is definitely difficult and not for everyone. Do not let anyone tell you that you are less than because you are not a parent. Story 50. Very strong, running in the family type of medical conditions that I can barely take care of myself, let alone another person. Story 51. I realized I have the autism spectrum disorder, and it runs in the family. Not all of us are bad, but the Generation Z and Generation Alpha kids are going to need help for the rest of their lives. When I realized that, I said no. Also, everything is very expensive and I do not make much. Story 52. I never had any leanings in that direction, and even if I had, I never met anyone I would have considered having them with until too late in life for both of us. Story 53. I work in childcare. Before I started working, I wanted 3 children. Now I want none. In addition, I have a chronic illness that is hereditary, and I see no reason to pass it on. There are also too many people on this planet already. Story 54. I was afraid of the process and couldn't afford to take care of myself properly, so I would not have been able to take care of my child. Story 55. I wanted children when I was young, but then I did not. I did not find a partner and was not going to have children without support. I am not rich, so affording just myself is a challenge, and adding children would not improve that. I have health problems, so I am glad I did not pass those on to the next generation. I do have nieces and nephews, and I am an awesome aunt. That has been enough for me. I also chose pets, though they are not cheap either. Story 56. I was never in a good enough position financially. I come from a poor family and did not want that for my children. Otherwise, I would probably have had them. Story 57. A childhood of physical, verbal, and emotional abuse. As I worked through overcoming my trauma, I see our world as it is and do not want to subject a child to it. Story 58. Every friend I have ever known who has had a child just kind of disappears from the world. I do not want that for me. There is so much I still have not experienced. Story 59. My unresolved intergenerational trauma and our world is on fire. It doesn't help that we are on the younger end of our friend group and have watched all our nice and mild-mannered friends turn into horrid parents. It has been revealing how maladjusted they all are, which was shocking because I thought it was just me. It has been a genuinely unsettling experience to watch new trauma forming in innocent children. I keep thinking that was me at that age, getting screamed at, ignored, and told horrible things about myself. I now believe that most people are not suited to be parents. It is the most complicated responsibility we can take on, and I am starting to think it does not mesh well with the demands of our current capitalist systems. Our friends are visibly overwhelmed, and their children pay the price. We try to help and intervene, but ultimately, I can tell these children will grow up into maladjusted adults who will raise more maladjusted people, and so on. It is depressing. Story 60. I have been looking after my mother since I was a teenager. Additionally, my brother and his wife, who are 20 years older than me, are very incompetent at many things. Until last year, I always stepped in to help them. I am tired of devoting my life, energy, and time to others while sacrificing my own life goals. It is time I live for myself. Story 61. I always thought I would want children by the time I was 30. At age 30, I wanted children even less and never desired them. I have never had the urge to be a father. Story 62. I have many friends who choose not to have children because their childhood consisted of taking care of younger siblings. Their parents wanted a family but not the responsibility. These friends were forced to grow up very quickly, and it is the saddest thing I have ever seen. Many of them say the same thing. They do not want children but would love to have grandchildren. It is sad how poor parenting can ruin someone's outlook on this instead of allowing them to decide for themselves. Story 63. Being raised in a strict religion-based home, Pentecostal, under the control of parents in society who said, "You must have children." I was dependent on myself and barely able to keep myself afloat, much less a child or family. I did not want children to endure half the difficulties I experienced growing up. Did I miss out? Maybe, but I do not know the difference now that I am older. Story 64. I knew from a very early age that I did not want children. I never felt anything maternal towards children or babies. I hated baby dolls. Story 65. I have never liked children. They make noise, young ones are wet, and they lead to a lifetime of responsibility. Story 66. Kids have never been something I desired. Nothing was convincing. When I got with my current partner, we talked about children early on and agreed we would have some, in addition to the one she already had with her previous partner. But after we moved in together, it became clear to me that she was not emotionally prepared for children. There were two incidents I still vividly remember. The first was when she took him out for the evening to the city, about a half-hour drive away, and he urinated on himself and his car seat. Of course, she had to turn around, and she was distraught. This is why I never make plans. I couldn't believe this happened. She was hysterical. He was about 5 at the time. Around the same time, give or take a few years, she became upset because his room wasn't clean and organized. Again, hysterics using words like, "I'm done. I can't do this." We had a 50-50 custody arrangement with his father, so we only had him half of the time. The idea of us having children was over in my mind. If she couldn't emotionally handle one child half the time, there was no way we could have more. I had a vasectomy, and that was that. We've been together for 9 years, and it is what it is. Story 67. Anxiety about both pregnancy and labor, being responsible for someone else's life, feeling selfish because I value my freedom and sleep. Story 68. The thought of being pregnant is so abhorrent to me. I knew that if I ever wanted children, I would adopt. But I am also 34 now and can barely make enough to take care of myself and my dog financially. So I feel like I would be setting this child up for a very hard road. That was basically how I felt a few years ago. Now, adding climate change and the renewed tensions of the Cold War, the situation feels even more challenging. Story 69. I never felt that any of my former partners were capable of fully committing, and I was proven right. I refuse to bring a child into this world with someone who cannot take care of what they claim to be important. Story 70. I was afraid that I would harm my children as much as the adults in my life harmed me growing up. Good luck. God bless. Story 71. I grew up with 6 younger siblings, always a new baby. I am tired of having kids at home. I just want my peace and quiet. I also can barely take care of my own needs. Story 72. Money, we never could buy a house. But I'll tell you, when my friends would tell me this madness about scheduling play dates and having to socialize with parents of my hypothetical kids' friends, it really soured me. It sounded like junior high all over again, and I ran away like a smart person. Parenting was not for me. Story 73. Mental health problems and a difficult childhood. I would never intentionally expose a child to this world. Story 74. As someone with a child, it is hard work and your whole world and identity change to now being a parent. I absolutely love my daughter, but it is challenging. If you do not want a child, do not force yourself to have one just because it is expected. Every baby deserves the love, time, and energy from their parents, and if you are not willing to provide that, just do not have a child. Story 75. I barely know how to be an adult. I did not want to be responsible for teaching someone else to be an adult. Story 76. I never had the biological urge. Ever. I cannot imagine being a mother. I never felt the biological time bomb I was warned about. I have had people ask if I ever regret not having children. I always want to respond like Claire Underwood and say, "Do you ever regret having yours?" In truth, I am pretty lazy and very selfish with my time and attention. I would be a horrible parent, either neglecting the child or being resentful. Story 77. Growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a mother. I graduated college with a degree in early childhood education and started teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic. I realized how much work it is to have a child and dismissed that idea completely. I work with children still, but have no interest in having my own. I enjoy my freedom and my money. Story 78. I am transgender, so that makes things a little more difficult when it comes to actually making a human. Story 79. It is a parasite. Once you learn more about its anatomy and physiology, I can assure you it is nothing but a human-shaped parasite. It will destroy your body and your mind. You will be permanently damaged. If not damaged, you will literally die. It is not some magical miracle of life. You are nothing but a host. You have been lied to. The alien movies are not that far off. If you are willing to risk all of this, then go ahead. That is your choice. I choose not to make this choice. Story 80. I spent my whole childhood and adolescence raising and caring for my siblings and mother, and my entire adulthood so far has been supporting and acting as a therapist for my mother. I refuse to care for anyone else. I am exhausted. I am ready for my life to finally be about me. Story 81. I had a difficult childhood resulting in significant mental health challenges. I did not want to pass those challenges down to a child, nor did I want my mental health to negatively affect a child. I also felt that my mental health might not handle the pressure and stress of parenting. I am someone who feels intense empathy and guilt, and the idea of telling a child they cannot have a candy bar stresses me out. I am quite happy being independent except for having a partner. I like not being tied down or having anyone else relying on me. My partner and I keep our finances completely separate because we are not married. I love my friends' children and enjoy playing the role of aunt. That is a much better role for me than mother. Story 82. My father was a piece of scum. I knew I never wanted to bring a child into this world that I could not fully take care of comfortably and give even more than it deserved. Then time just passed me by. Story 83. I refused to consider having children because I did not want to pass down any of my generational trauma. Even if there were a guarantee that I would have been a perfect mother, I was never going to subject children to my horrible, toxic family. So, no children for me. My husband did not want them either, so it worked out. Story 84. A big issue is the current administration in the United States. Many people in my age group are not interested because of the current political landscape. Additionally, it is hard enough to maintain financial stability to stay just above water with childcare and other related expenses. It is not an incentive. It is seen as another debt. Story 85. I never dealt well with children, even when I was a child myself. I do not like how noisy they are and their lack of respect for other people's space. Story 86. No one specific thing did. I just eventually realized I had a choice, and once I knew I had a choice, I gradually figured out that I did not want them. I never really saw them in my future once I thought about it. Story 87. I love myself too much to split my soul and continue creating unnecessary karma for the sake of satisfying some outdated animal instinct to procreate. Story 88. It is not a strong yes for me, which when I deeply considered it, I would not want anything less for any child. I know there is worse out there than mediocre parenting, but it is not for me. Additionally, children's entertainment is very irritating to my brain. Story 89. When I met my husband in August 2013, I found out that he wasn't keen on the idea of having children due to his childhood. His biological father kidnapped him and took him out of the country for 2 years during a protracted custody battle and divorce proceedings with his mother. That damaged his view of having children, mostly because he was afraid of being like his biological father. In June 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, severe adenomyosis, and multiple large fibroid tumors, one about the size of a cantaloupe. After my first surgery to remove 4 of the 5 tumors, a golf ball-sized endometrioma on my right ovary, extensive lysis of adhesions, and excision of endometriosis lesions throughout my abdomen, I learned that I had approximately a 2 to 5% chance of natural conception, and a 10 to 15% chance at best with in vitro fertilization. I was far from an ideal candidate for in vitro fertilization. I had a second surgery in August 2016 to remove the 5th fibroid, and we hoped the treatments would be sufficient, but they were not. Everything returned aggressively, and I ultimately required a hysterectomy, along with removal of my ovaries, fallopian tubes, and appendix in November 2023. Unfortunately, that was not the end of our family planning challenges. To ensure that we absolutely would not have children, by whatever force governs the universe or some cruel twist of fate, on March 28, 2024, my husband had a stroke. I recognized it quickly, and he received clot-busting medication with no lasting deficits. The stroke was caused by a blood clot resulting from stage 3A metastatic testicular cancer. The cancer caused the clot, which traveled through a hole between the top two chambers of his heart and then to his brain. He underwent surgery to remove the affected testicle, tumor, and lymph nodes. 1.5 weeks later, he had heart surgery to repair the hole in his heart. A month later, he had a port placed and then underwent 3 months of chemotherapy, which severely impacted his body. Any thoughts of having children have completely disappeared for both of us. We are focused on staying alive at this point. We both have decent life insurance policies, so if one of us dies, the other will have some financial support to help cover expenses. Story 90. All of the things. The loss of our freedom to do whatever, whenever. The extra responsibility. The way parenting has changed to put even more burden on the parents than before. The difficult state of the world and not wanting to bring a child into it. The added financial strain. We could afford it, but why? The real nail in the coffin is that many of our friends have had children lately who are absolute nightmares. And if I had been undecided before, these experiences are a hard stop. Story 91. Same reason I have not taken up scuba diving. I do not have any desire to do so, and it seems like an expensive and time-consuming hobby. Story 92. I knew when I was a little child that I was not going to have children. I grew up in a large family, and as a girl, I had to care for younger siblings. I hated it and knew I had no maternal instinct. Story 93. I already teach children starting from kindergarten age. Having limited time with them works perfectly for me because I can make those moments count, and I get to have a personal life afterward. Story 94. We like money and free time to do whatever we want. We enjoy being intimate with my wife anytime and anywhere in the house, without restrictions. We both love our jobs and are focused on them. We are 39 and 41 years old. Story 95. I don't want to be pregnant or give birth. Children are expensive. It's a whole human you have to keep alive and guide through life. I worry about everything. I would be the worst helicopter parent ever. I would be their only friend because they would never be out of my sight. If you are American, you cannot send them to school without fearing they might be harmed by one of their classmates. Climate change is going to make this planet uninhabitable probably sooner than we realize. There are many reasons I do not want children. Story 96. I was on a beach digging. I got 5 or 6 feet down and found black oily sand. When ships are at sea and their propellers are turning, the oil used to lubricate the shaft is exposed to the ocean and leaks into the water. It works itself into a ball shape and washes up on the beach, where the sun melts it into the sand. Multiply this by how many ships ply the ocean and start counting from the time of steamships. Now you know how serious the world's pollution is. No one cares, or at least that is how I see it. I have had several tank barrels track my school bus on the way to and from school for months. With this being ground level, I took a hard look at the wars, the death, the pollution, the terrorism, the greed, and the crime. I could not and cannot see myself growing up into this world. Story 97. A number of reasons. 1. Pregnancy scares me on its own, even without all the health risks, and I have a medical condition that makes it even more risky. 2. Intimacy with men is something I have never entertained beyond one single character fantasy. It was more an emotional desire for closeness than picturing physicality, and I find male anatomy unpleasant. 3. I have a disability that makes it difficult to take children to places they need to go because I cannot drive unless my partner helps. I would not want to feel pressured into asking more of them than someone without a disability. 4. I am very fearful about my adult relatives being safe, let alone children. I worry about being an overprotective parent and then damaging them mentally as a result. Story 98. Number 1. I had a difficult upbringing, watching my parents argue all the time, even to this day. I never had a decent relationship. The first two girlfriends cheated on me within 2 months of dating. In the only long-term relationship I had, I was so deep into being a drunk that I let her go because I wanted to drink instead. As I got older, I became scared of being alone and made even more bad decisions. Once I reached 40, I realized that I am a disabled veteran, extremely poor and mentally unstable. It is a good thing I never had children and decided I am done trying to date. Now, I feel much better that I never had children. I would feel even worse if I had a child in this world they would be inheriting. Story 99. I have a genetic condition that has a 50% chance of being passed on to my children. Knowing how much pain I experience daily is not something I would wish on anyone, especially my child. Story 100. You know, when people get rich, they die in helicopter crashes. I feel like that, but with the lottery for kids. Story 101. Past traumas. I am in my 30s and still have not healed. I do not think I have the mental, emotional, or physical capacity to raise a child. I know I would give unconditional love to the child if I were a mother, but I would lose myself. Story 102. I kind of already got a sneak peek from my childhood, having to be the older sister looking after three younger chaotic siblings. That was all the trauma I needed to convince me. Although I am not completely shut away from the idea, it has to be with the right person if that is even possible. Story 103. I'm not that maternal. If I see a mother with a newborn and there is a cat nearby, I go directly toward the cat. I am also not that interested in the whole raising children thing. Never was. It is an enormous responsibility which I was never open to adding to all my other enormous responsibilities. But I am happy when my friends have children because they are happy, I think. Story 104. Never wanted to. By the time I was 36, several of my immediate family members had passed away far too soon. My grandparents, mom, dad, aunt, and uncle, all from different illnesses or by their own hand. Supposedly, none of it is genetic, but no thank you. I already have enough to deal with. Story 105. For me, it was a lady who used to deliver our Jet A fuel. I work in aviation, and that is what goes into the planes. Her name was Tracy. She was an older woman, and I was set on not having any children. I talked to her one day before a major holiday, either Thanksgiving or Christmas. I asked her, "What are your plans for the holiday? Having the family come over or something interesting?" She told me that she never wanted children at a young age either, and with her lover gone, she spends the day alone. Now it was just another day for her. She said it gets lonely, and she wished she had kids and grandchildren around to spend the holidays with. After that conversation, she convinced me to have children so I would not end up like her. Now I have a 6-year-old and an ex-stepson. His mother and I divorced, but I still take care of him. I met him when he was 3 or 4. It has helped a lot. It is a little stressful with them, but I love them dearly. Story 106. I was the oldest and a girl. I was burdened with a lot of responsibilities. We have significant age differences as well, so I felt like I knew what it was like, and I would rather not experience it. All of my friends have children, as do 2 of my 3 siblings. I like kids but did not want to be a parent again. Story 107. No motherly instinct. Mental health issues run rampant in my family. I prefer a quiet life and have never had a desire. Story 108. I don't trust other people enough to have a child with one of them. I am good. My dog is awesome. Story 109. The first apartment my husband and I lived in was above an ice cream shop. There is no better contraception than that. Story 110. After watching generations of women in my family give up their future and careers, I decided I wanted something different for myself. Story 111. I was going to have children, but then Anthony Jeselnik showed me how funny it was to dislike them instead. Story 112. I am selfish. I want to do what I want when I want how I want. I want to sleep in. I want to go to the gym. I want to travel. I want to fall in and out of love with a bunch of strangers. I want to climb mountains and then jump off them. I want to consume all the world has to offer before it is all over for me. Children require consistency, love, and validation. I could never provide that, not for myself and certainly not for them. Story 113. I would love to have children with a partner, but it always comes down to money. I just cannot afford it even with two incomes. Story 114. I had an abusive childhood. Took years to get myself straightened out. I did not want to follow that path with a child of my own. Story 115. At 15, I knew I was not going to have any children. I am 40 now with a good job, yet I am still struggling, which is surprising given my income. I was never going to be able to afford children. I have dated people with children, and I found children to be annoying and undisciplined, often getting their way in everything. Story 116. I just never wanted them, the same way I have never wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer. The thought never really crossed my mind. Story 117. I do not think I will have enough money for their upbringing. Even if I do and they do not do well, that will be disappointing. Clearly, it is something I do not want to deal with in my 40s and 50s. Story 118. Nobody wants to have children with me. They are too expensive and would just grow up in poverty. I am too immature to be responsible for another life. I can barely manage my own. Story 119. Your emotions, opinions, and preferences can and will always evolve. My medical situation will not, no matter how advanced things get and how rapidly everything is progressing. Story 120. Complete lack of interest in being a mother. I own a business, have a supportive partner, travel whenever I want, enjoy a satisfying personal life, keep all my money, and can have nice things. It is fulfilling. Story 121. Being gay kind of puts barriers up in that regard. It is not like I am ever going to accidentally have a child. Surrogacy is expensive. Adoption is expensive. I have to really want a child in order to get one. Even then, I could very likely be turned away just because I am gay. I do not have the time, money, or energy to deal with that right now. For the time being, no children for me. I am not ruling it out in the future, but I am not ready to go through a whole adoption or surrogacy process right now. Story 122. I have wanted to spend time taking care of a child since I was young, but I have many other things to do. I have no attraction to motherhood. Story 123. I'm selfish and not tolerant of loud noises. I've always known I wouldn't be a good mother. As the youngest member of our family, I was pretty spoiled. Don't get me wrong, I'm a nurturing, generous, and kind person, but I also realize I'm too self-centered to be responsible for a baby. Story 124. I've known I didn't want children since I was a child. I hated playing with baby dolls, and my Bratz dolls were always out at the club and traveling. Then I started babysitting, and it just solidified my stance further. And carrying a child in my womb? Absolutely not. I had my fallopian tubes removed a year and a half ago, and I am very thankful. The surgery is less expensive than raising a child. Story 125. In America, the elites want children so that we consume more and drive the economy. That is the only value in capitalism. This reason alone is enough, but also climate change. Story 126. Freedom to do whatever whenever. Luckily, I found a man who feels the same. Individually, we never felt a pull to parenthood. Also, I do not want to be alive in 60 years to see what happens to the world. I cannot imagine willingly putting someone I love through that. Story 127. Part of it was that we did not want children. There were also some health issues that I did not want to pass on. Another reason was that both my partner and I were dealing with a lot of emotional trauma from our own childhoods, and we did not want to affect the next generation. We also saw the signs and did not want to bring another child into this world when there are so many who need help because, as a society, we do not truly care about children once they are born. Story 128. I am too self-centered to be a good parent. I am still trying to keep myself above water, so I do not have the time or energy to take care of a child. Story 129. Children? In this economy, my cats are all I need. Plus, I would be too paranoid trying to keep a tiny human alive. Children are scary. They are so unpredictable. Story 130. I grew up not wanting children because I thought they would ruin my life. That is what abstinence-based sex education does to you. I grew up, though, and found the best man I could have ever asked for. That brought some feelings of wanting a child. He does not want children. Because of some generational trauma. I almost convinced him, and then the former president was reelected, and we both decided we would never bring a child into this difficult world. I could not live with myself bringing someone willingly into this challenging world we live in. Story 131. Childhood abuse. Mental illnesses. Genetic cancer issue. I also do not think I could manage my life with a child. It is already hard enough. Adding a child would be too much. I underwent sterilization in February 2025. Best decision ever. Story 132. 1. Not having the financial means. 2. Being mentally unwell. 3. Having an autoimmune disease that can possibly be passed down to daughters. Story 133. I knew from a very early age, around 7 or 8, that I did not want children. I am 29 now, and I still do not. A few reasons I do not want children include: I had to raise my younger brother as a child myself, which prevented me from doing things a typical child should have done. Witnessing how poverty and hoarding contribute to long-lasting issues in the children of the household, based on personal experience. The potential for a trusted family member or family friend to harm my children as I was harmed. The significant cost of pregnancy and childbirth, not to mention raising children. The fact that twins run in my family, and I am not mentally capable of handling even one child, let alone two. The increasing cost of living in the United States and the potential expenses my children would face as adults. A family history of severe mental illnesses including depression, mania, dissociative identity disorder, and schizophrenia, though the terminology may have changed. I am selfish and value my alone time, where I can walk around naked, smoke marijuana if I want, or take spontaneous day trips. The recent escalation of a potential third world war and the fact that I live about an hour from one of the largest nuclear power plants in the United States. These are just a few reasons from my ever-growing list for why I do not want children. I could certainly continue, but I think this sums it up, especially the last reason. Story 134. Because of all the neglect, trauma, and mental abuse that my parents inflicted on me, I am going to end the cycle of abuse. Story 135. I like myself too much. I could be a great parent, but I don't want to trade my life to raise another person. With children, I can't travel on a whim. I can't spend 5 weeks in Colorado during ski season. I can't wake up on a Thursday, decide to skip work, and drive out of state to go fishing or mountain biking. I can't decide to be lazy and just play games after work if it was a long day. I am capable of being responsible for other people, but I don't want to be. Story 136. Watching my parents. They got divorced when I was 4. It always felt like my mom had kids just to get a leg up in the world. We were provided a good upbringing. Now, she should be an empty nester and is struggling to keep the house. It's doable with 2 flows of revenue, but if you are alone, why bother? I am having trouble taking care of cats. A human would be a horrible idea. Story 137. Money mostly. My wife and I have always been broke. We do not think we would make good parents, but we love each other. Story 138. Loud, smelly, and expensive when they are young, loud, smelly, and expensive as teenagers. No thanks. I want the freedom to do what I want, when I want, and how I want. I have never felt like I wanted them. It frustrates me when people say, "You might change your mind," or "You will change your mind as you get older. You are just young." It is strange to suggest that they somehow know me better than I know myself. Story 139. I can hardly take care of myself, and in my late 30s, I still have not fully come into my own as a man. I am still on my journey, and I am not thrilled at the idea of stopping that journey to raise a child. Story 140. I have many genetic issues, and I have not found anyone suitable to have children with, so why bother? I would hate to bring someone into this world who has suffered as I have. Story 141. Hearing my parents complain to their children about how complicated having children can be really made the decision easy for me. Parenthood should have been marketed a little better. Story 142. Nothing made me want to have children. It never occurred to me to want kids. Adults on Reddit who decided to have children, what made you want to? Story 143. I was having so much fun living my life the way it was and did not want to change that. Also, I think it is cruel to bring children into this world in its current state. Story 144, mental health issues affected my mom, her mom, and I definitely got my share as well. I would not want to risk passing them to another person. My mental health challenges sometimes make it hard to take care of myself. How could I take care of a child? I do not think I have the energy for that. Related to the points above, I am scared of postpartum depression. I know my grandmother and my mom both had suicidal thoughts after giving birth. I do not want to go through the physical changes caused by pregnancy, lose my sex drive, and lose the connection to my partner. I do not think this planet needs more people. Considering how things are, I am afraid of the world my children would have to live in. I never had a strong biological urge to become a mother. I realized around age 12 that I did not have that desire. I am more likely to regret not having children than to regret having them. Children can definitely sense when they are not wanted, and that must be awful and traumatizing. At this point in my life, and given my age, I will be 31 soon. Even though that is not very old, I would not want to have my first child after this age. I do not have a partner now, so if I had a child, it might be when I am 34 or 35. That is too late for me personally. I could give more reasons, but I will leave it at this. I do not think being a mother is for me. I have basically never thought it was, and I am happy to be an aunt to the children of my relatives and friends. I really like children. They are amazing. I just do not want to have one of my own. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.